including felony burglary, robbery, theft. Tonight, the ongoing search for Nancy Guthrie takes a puzzling new turn: embezzlement and a DUI. Multiple outlets have reported this, sourced from court documents. The FBI chose a very specific word, but they lack independent confirmation from law enforcement. And that matters. Not asked, not contacted, the word was hired. These are public records, not an official accusation in this case. When a federal agency uses the word hired in a disappearance, they are not speaking loosely. That distinction is critical. They are describing a dark transaction. Now, what do these charges actually describe? Cold, deliberate, calculated. A buyer who sought information they could not get themselves. In Arizona, felony burglary is entering a structure unlawfully with criminal intent, and a seller who held the key. First-degree residential burglary is a class. A price was paid for knowledge so intimate, so deeply personal, it could only come from one place. 2 felony, the most serious property crime in Arizona's criminal code. Someone already within the household's sacred circle of trust? Someone with this on their record has made. Nancy Guthrie has been gone for over 44 days. She is 84 years old. Real decisions about entering a place they shouldn't, how to get in, when to move. Her life is sustained by daily cardiac medication. This is an abstract theory. There has been no confirmed proof of life. This is something this person has done before. Robbery is entirely different. Not a single sign across this entire grueling investigation. Robbery is direct, taking something from a person by force or the threat of it. The ransom notes were sent to newsrooms, not her family. A confrontation, a victim. Both deadlines were met with absolute silence. A moment where one person looked another in the eye and chose to take what wasn't theirs. And Sheriff Chris Nano stated on national television that he believes this crime was planned. Theft, multiple incidents, various types, not just one bad night. That Nancy's home was deliberately targeted, a plan built on purchased, inside information, a pattern across time, a DUI, for the record, then the one that unraveled everything, embezzlement. Now, the FBI is requesting surveillance footage from 2 very specific dates in January. Let me be precise about this. January 11th and January 24th, weeks before Nancy ever disappeared. This one charge matters more than any other for what this investigation is truly about. Think about what this truly means. They are no longer just looking for the abductor. You cannot embezzle from someone who doesn't trust you. They are hunting for the person who is watching her, casing her, learning her secrets. That is the very structure of the crime. A dedicated task force has now been assembled. Embezzlement demands legitimate access to money, to accounts. 5 sheriff's officers and multiple FBI agents are on this case full-time. Access granted because someone believed in you, placing you in a position of responsibility. This investigation is not slowing down. It is narrowing its focus. And embezzlement is the choice to take that trust and silently turn it into personal financial gain. Today, this video will examine one documented connection within the world of this case. Trusted access, exploited for money, a connection forged from public records and verified relationships. Say it again, trusted access exploited for money, and a criminal history buried in Arizona's courts that has received almost no mainstream attention. Now, recall what the FBI said about this case. Someone was hired to provide inside information. His name is Dominic Aaron Evans. Someone with access, someone trusted, someone paid. He is 48 years old, a 5th grade teacher in Tucson, Arizona. The structure is identical. The method is the same. The motive is the same. He's the co-founding drummer of a band called Early Black, a band he created with Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law. One version of this pattern ends with an embezzlement charge in Puma County court records. Tomaso Chioni, the other version, in this investigation, ends with a charge that has not yet been filed. Starting in 2007, Arizona court records, cited by the account JLR. This is not to say those 2 things are connected. Show a criminal history that includes felony burglary, robbery, theft, embezzlement, and a DUI. It is saying they describe the same kind of decision. Evans has already spoken with investigators, made by the same kind of person. That overlap doesn't vanish just because it's difficult to face. He confirmed a 40-minute interview with the FBI and the Puma County Sheriff's Department. Dominic Evans spoke to the New York Times in late February. He told them he was at home with his family the night Nancy went missing. He was direct and clearly in pain. His family was being tormented. He has not been contacted again since that day. Online detectives appeared outside his Tucson home. He and his wife, Andrea. No one has officially named him as a suspect. A school principal, hid in their bedroom with the lights off as strangers stood on their street. No law enforcement agency has accused him of anything regarding this case. The Guthrie family. I feel like someone's taken my name, including Tomaso Chioni. He told the Times, monetary clickbait to be relevant has been completely cleared by the sheriff. This video is not making that claim. Entertainment. But there are innocent people that get hurt. It is simply placing documented facts side by side and asking the questions those facts demand. He's right. He is completely right about the harm this causes. Stay with me. Sheriff Nanos backed him instantly. He's going through hell, and it's horrible. Every single thing you are about to hear is a verifiable fact. The sheriff told the Times Evans should consider talking to lawyers about suing for libel. And by the time we are done, you will understand exactly why this name belongs in this conversation. This video is not a part of that harassment. The FBI's involvement weeks before the abduction changes the entire narrative. This video is not accusing Dominic Evans of kidnapping Nancy Guthrie. Let's begin there, because a new detail has reframed the entire picture. It is not accusing him of giving information to anyone. The FBI has issued a formal request to nearby neighbors. He told investigators he was home with his family. He cooperated voluntarily. Surrender all security footage from January 11th and January 24th. He hasn't been contacted since. But one thing remains, no matter how carefully you frame it. Both of these dates were weeks before she vanished. The FBI states someone with trusted inside access was paid to give information on this household on February 1st, yet investigators have revealed nothing about their significance. In Tomaso Chion's documented life, they don't need to. The implication is terrifying. Someone was there before. The person with the deepest, longest. Someone was watching, learning the patterns of the neighborhood, timing the routines. Most embedded access to his personal life is a man whose public records show a crime. They were finding camera blind spots, learning when Nancy was alone, studying the property in darkness, requiring physical entry, and another defined entirely by exploiting trust for financial gain. This was not a crime of impulse. In Pima County, in the very same city, this was reconnaissance, the prelude to a crime that was meticulously designed across 17 years. And this theory fits perfectly with what Sheriff Nanos has claimed from the start. That pattern is etched in the public record, regardless of his involvement, a pattern this specific. We believe we understand his motive. Existing alongside an active federal investigation with a dedicated task force deserves to be properly examined. We believe she was specifically targeted. A former agent stated it even more directly. Not by faceless strangers on the internet, outside a person's house. This is not a house you simply happen upon and decide to rob. But by investigators, in a room, on the official record. It's far from that. So, what is the real question? Who pointed him to that house? Evans confirmed he spoke to them for 40 minutes. Catalina Foothills is a sprawling, confusing area, dozens of winding streets. They questioned him on the band, the friendship, and his alibi. Hundreds of homes, many occupied by elderly residents living by themselves. He hasn't heard from them since. The interview itself is not the issue. If you're a criminal searching for an easy target, it happened. The question is if 40 minutes on a band. You do not fixate on one house, on one street, on this one 84-year-old woman. A friendship, the mother-in-law of a science teacher, is not worth a week-long surveillance mission. And an alibi is truly enough scrutiny, given the chilling overlap between his criminal history, unless you were told why, unless someone explained exactly who she was, and the FBI's own framework for informants, what her home life was like, and precisely when she was most vulnerable. I almost cut this part, knowing how it sounds without context, early black, what the cameras captured, and what they did not. That is the betrayal the FBI is investigating. The band formed by Tomaso Chioni, that is the information someone was paid to provide. Dominic Evans in 2007, a project lasting nearly 2 decades, released an album. Intelligence that specific, that layered and accurate, that does not come from a stranger. They gave it a deliberate title, not a placeholder, a chosen name printed on the actual sleeve. Here is what we know of Tomaso Chioni. He is 50 years old, born in Italy, a Tucson resident for years. The title is Life, Love, Murder. Look, Art Explores Darkness. A science teacher, husband to Annie Guthrie, Nancy's oldest daughter. Nick Cave created murder ballads his entire career. On the night of January 31st, Nancy had dinner at their home. Tom Waits made albums about desperation and violence. He was among the family who brought her back at 9:48 p.m. An album title with murder isn't evidence by itself, but we are not looking at it by itself. He could have been the last person to see her before she disappeared, early on. We are in a case where an 84-year-old woman vanished 44 days ago. Journalist Ashley Banfield publicly labeled him as the main suspect. The FBI has stated the crime was planned. There's a clear link to Annie Guthrie's car and Nancy's son-in-law. The person most connected to this case co-founded a band with that exact title. That man would be Annie's husband. And his co-founder of 17 years has a criminal history of felony burglary and embezzlement. Thomas Oyan, age 50, a local from Tucson, Arizona. When you see the full picture, married to Annie P. Guthrie, Savannah's own sister. Not in some vacuum, but in this reality, that album title is not something you just ignore. My law enforcement source confirms Thomas Oyan is the prime suspect in this case. It doesn't answer anything, but it certainly asks a question. I repeat, my source says Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, Annie's husband. What were these two men saying to each other through their art? Savannah's brother-in-law is considered the prime suspect, long before they were asked to answer for anything else. Sheriff Nanos immediately fired back. On February 16th, he released a public statement. She had dinner with family on Saturday night and took an Uber home. The Guthrie family, including all siblings and their spouses, are cleared as suspects. Her garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. She was inside. She was alive. Then at 1:47 a.m., the family has been completely cooperative and gracious. Her doorbell camera was physically disconnected at 2:12 a.m. Cleared. He had no criminal history, no confirmed motive. A motion sensor on the property was triggered at 2:28 a.m. Her pacemaker stopped syncing. The rumors of his gambling debts that spread like wildfire were investigated and deemed baseless. 41 minutes, her blood was discovered at the entrance. The power of attorney document shared online was reviewed and called entirely routine by legal experts. Her blood, found before she was moved. The ransom notes went to news outlets, not to the family. Let's pause here for a moment. The FBI's special agent in charge said that in a normal case, there would have been contact by now. The fingers are all pointing at Tomaso Chioni. Both deadlines passed with nothing but silence. And it makes sense. He was the last to see Nancy. That family tie is undeniable. No third note, no new demands, no proof of life throughout the whole investigation. On the surface, the questions seem logical. A former FBI behavioral profiler, Jim. But it's a one-dimensional view. When the real story is just out of frame, Clemente said the 40-minute window at the home is analytically. The question isn't what Tommaso did directly, but who exists in his world. Inconsistent with a professional kidnapping? Who has been there long enough to know the details? Former FBI agent Greg Rogers told a magazine he never believed this was a robbery that went wrong. And who in that circle has a history of the exact crimes the FBI described? Because one person does. A former police lieutenant, Michael Selt Gould, assessed that given her age, April 2007, Tucson, Arizona, Tomaso Chioni co-founds a band called Early Black. Her dependency on cardiac medication. This wasn't a weekend hobby or a few gigs and a breakup. And the physical evidence of trauma at the scene. Early Black had recorded music, a documented history, and a core membership that endured. She most likely did not survive beyond 72 hours after she vanished. A bond forged over nearly 2 decades. On February 4th, 5 days before the deadline, the DNA from inside her home. The co-founding drummer, there from day one, a founding member, was Dominic Aaron Evans. A mixed sample from more than one person is still being analyzed at a lab in Florida, and people underestimate what a 17-year bond as bandmates truly means. The property's cameras have yielded new images to the FBI. You rehearse in each other's homes. You travel together. Investigators now scour neighborhood footage from January 11th and January 24th. You split money, handle bookings. The logistics demand constant contact for years. A dedicated task force works this case relentlessly, day and night. You get to know each other's partners. This is no cold case. The circle is closing. Dominic Aaron Evans, 48 years old. You meet the families. A 5th grade teacher, a 17-year bandmate of the victim's son-in-law. You learn things about their life, not from digging or from snooping. His past, according to court records, felony burglary, robbery, but simply by being there, present, trusted. Theft, embezzlement, and a DUI. One 40-minute interview was held, then silence. Allowed inside, again and again. Evans told the New York Times he learned of, this is not an accusation, Nancy's disappearance on Instagram, then immediately messaged Chioni his support. It presents a documented pattern and asks if the investigation has met the FBI's own demanding standards. He also stated he'd met Nancy just once, back in 2011. Nancy Guthrie was a mother, a beloved grandmother. He made that clear. He isn't claiming to be close with Nancy. Woman of faith. She shared a final meal with her family that Saturday, but never saw the Sunday morning service. What he has is a close 17-year relationship with her son-in-law. Her life was stolen. That is the exact relationship fitting the FBI's profile, not a link to Nancy. She had a front porch where a terrible secret was born, one that someone has fought desperately to keep buried. But a relationship with Tommaso? She deserves the truth. Do you know something? A vehicle? A hushed conversation. And through him, access to everything Tommaso knows about his household. His wife. A face. A detail you've been holding on to. The tip line is open now. His mother-in-law. Her home. This is what those Pima County records reveal. 1-800-CALL-FBI. $1 million, paid out anonymously. Arizona's Pima County court records, cited publicly by JLR. Every crime leaves a ripple. And on the edge of the circle surrounding what happened to Nancy Guthrie, investigates on X from the state's public court system, show charges filed against Evans. There are those who know more than they have revealed. Trust is the invisible thread that holds our families and communities together. In the tragic case of Nancy Guthrie, that thread didn't just snap, it was sold. When a federal agency uses the word hired, they aren't just describing a crime, they are exposing a dark transaction of the soul. They are telling us that the most intimate details of a life, an 84-year-old woman's routine, her vulnerabilities, her very heartbeat were treated as mere inside information. This story is a chilling reminder that our most vulnerable citizens depend on our collective integrity. A home should be a sanctuary, yet here it was violated by a betrayal born within the sacred circle of trust. We must realize that every hushed conversation ignored and every suspicious pattern overlooked creates a sanctuary for those who wish to do harm. True security isn't found in doorbell cameras or locks, it is found in the loyalty we owe to one another. We cannot allow the sanctity of the home to be traded for a price. If you see a ripple in the peace of your neighborhood, speak up. If you hold a fragment of the truth, release it. Because when we protect the truth, we protect the most precious thing we have, the safety of those who raised us. Nancy deserves more than silence. She deserves the light.